Hey, everybody, this is Stu Smith, and it is Monday. So that means it is Never Quit Mindset Monday. And today is my first guest on the Never Quit Mindset podcast. Longtime friend and workout partner and business partner, Jim Edwards. Jim, thank you for being here.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. This is weird. You turned the tables on me. We've been doing a podcast together for 10 years, and all of a sudden I'm on the other side, and I got to let you talk.
I know. So, here, let me just give a little full disclosure. Jim contacted me probably 13 years ago, we're figured out.
Yeah.
And he just pushed the button that on my website that made him a online client. So I started training him online about 13 years ago, and that relationship has evolved into Jim becoming my best virtual friend, as my wife likes to call my internet boyfriends, and um, business partner as well. So we have done some great projects together, mainly on the entrepreneurial coaching side, not so much a fitness business, but how to take your own business and make it into something special. And that is where Jim um, really excels. In fact, you see all those books back there? Those are books that he coached people to write. So, and he just got a few in the mail right there, it looks like,
Yeah.
from a recent book writing challenge that he puts on his website. And if you're interested in who Jim Edwards is, you got to check out copyandcontent.ai, and you can see his programs that he has over there that he sells. But this isn't really a commercial for you, Jim. It is about some stories that I have heard over the years, and I thought you'd be a great candidate to bring on to discuss a never quit story of young Jim Edwards and what maybe created some of the resilient mindset that you have, in facing doubt and failure and pushing through and becoming a success on the back end. So
Wow.
let's start on the back end, early end of young Jim Edwards. Where did the never quit mindset start? Do you think?
Um, I think that it started. I was a pretty well. First of all, Stu, thanks for having me on. And it's I tell you, Stu took me from fat and 40 to 50 and fabulous. So there you go.
He is now the ageless athlete. In fact, Jim was my guinea pig for this one.
I
Jim
know.
remembers the guinea pig workouts that
100%. I'm like, hey, these are kind of weird, and he's asking for more feedback than usual. Oh well. One quick story. I met Stu before I met Stu was at a event, and he was managing obstacle on the top of Wintergreen Mountain, or ever it was Wintergreen. Anyway, some ski
yeah. Let
resort.
me just tell you, an obstacle course on a ski slope was probably the worst idea I've ever had to go do. Running up a ski slope is just one of those things that you got to be in a mindset to do that, and that was a rude awakening to do that. It was
And
what a Go Ruck event. That it was
yeah,
so much fun though.
it was a lot of fun. One of the guys in my group had broken his back on the Dirty Name one, and so we got to the top. There was this huge line. And I'm like, screw it, man. I'm not going to stand in this line. I can bypass a couple hundred people here and keep going. And so I'm like kind of wandering by, and this stocky dude says, hey, I'm like, what? Huh? If you're going to bypass this obstacle, you need to drop and give me 58 count bodybuilders. And I was like, oh, crap. I think it's going to kick my ass. So I dropped and did them. And then, like, 8 months later, I met Stu. So that
That
was,
is
but I
fun.
had already met Stu, but he made such an impression. I was like, hey, I know that dude.
Yeah.
Um, but you ask about Jim Edwards. So little Jim Edwards was a very sickly kid. I had asthma. I had severe allergies. I struggled with a form of cancer for 4 years. But let's just say my I missed more school than I made.
Damn.
And freshman year in high school, I missed 100 out of 180 days of school. Sophomore year, I missed missed 80 out of 180 days of school. And so I spent a lot of time by myself in pain.
Mm.
And I mean, years. And that forced me to go inward rather than outward, meaning and so I learned how to deal with pain
Mm.
to the point where doctors and nurses would be like, don't you want some pain medicine? I'm like, nah, I'm cool. Because I didn't like the way it made me feel. I'll tell you, and this is also when I learned to take some agency over my life. Like if you speak up and you act with assurance, even as a little kid, you can make grown-ups come to heel.
Mm.
So this might be a little gross, but this is when I was like, okay, I'm going to take control of my own pain. So back when I was having all these operations, it was all in my sinuses and shit growing in here and all this other stuff. My eyeball turned green. The funny thing is the cancerous stuff wasn't what almost killed me. What almost killed me was the staph infection I got.
Oh,
That my eyeball turned green and it was bad. So
damn.
anyway, in order to do what they had to do, every time they did it, they had to cut your cheek off your face. And then they would pack it with this just basically gauze. And so you'd pull it out of your nostril, but then they also had it where you'd pull it out of your mouth. It was all packed up in here and they left a hole. And so the first time they did, this doctor who, I mean, this will tell you how long ago this was. there were no, there were none of these little cameras and stuff. Dude would put one of those, remember in the cartoons, that mirror thing that the doctor would have on his head and
Oh
put
yeah.
over his eye? Yeah, that was like a real thing. And then they jam something in your nose that looked like it should be used by an obstetrician. I think they call them, I don't even know what they call the thing.
Forceps.
Yeah, I don't think so. But anyway, this guy reaches up in my mouth. I'm like, don't know what's going on, and starts yanking this stuff out. And it's like 100 feet long. I mean, it's probably 10 feet long, but
Yeah.
little kid.
Still.
And I'm like, holy shit, dude! I about shot up out of the bed, levitated like baby Jesus. And I said, ain't never doing that to me again. And so the next time I had that same operation, he comes in and I said, hang on. And he's like, what? What? I said, I'm going to do it. You get it started and I'm going to do it.
Damn.
And he was like, I said, I'm doing it. He said, okay. So I pulled it out and it
Nice and
hurt like
slow.
a bitch, but
Yeah.
I pulled it out nice and slow. And doctor's like, okay. So then there was another thing they would do to me that really hurt with an injection. And they had this thing they call them a heparin lock. They do something else. Anyway, they'd inject this called heparin in there. It would keep it from clotting.
Mm.
Well, the nurse had come along and jammed the thing in there, and it's like, holy crap, lady. And so I said, okay, let me see if I can do it. I said, let me do it. What? Let me do it. Stick it in there and I'll do it. And they were like, okay. So then I did it. And so I was able to that was when I started realizing, hey, there's going to be some pain, but if I speak up or if I take control, maybe I can control the pain a little bit. I know that sounds weird, but I'll never forget that.
Hmm.
But then also being faced internally. I mean, like I would sit in the hospital bed for hours pretending like I was asleep so that I would just sit there and I didn't at the time. I mean, I wouldn't have called it meditation, but I would sit there and just think.
Huh.
I would envision things in my body fighting the thing. I would envision like these little warriors inside my body fighting the bad stuff.
That's probably a really good idea.
And I
Mm.
mean, it
I think
just
there's some
and
science on that. That's something.
I don't know. I was a weird
Yeah.
little kid, but it's like I didn't need anybody. I mean, I needed my mom and dad and my
Yeah.
sister and all that stuff, but I didn't have that kid need for like connection or what I would call meaningless kind of bullshit. I didn't have time for BS when I was
Right.
a kid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I a lot of the things that people thought were important, I was like, this is total bullshit.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, and it kind of got me into trouble because I was about this tall. I
Mhm.
mean, when I went to seventh grade, I was 4'10" and weighed 67 pounds.
Oh,
I
damn.
looked like something off a UNICEF poster.
Damn.
And so I was I mean, I was also younger by almost a year because the cutoff in California to go to school was, November 30th or whatever, and I was born on November 22nd, and my dad was like, "Get that little son of a bitch out of here. Let's get him to school." you know. So I was already, kind of behind the eight ball,
Damn.
but it made me very self-reliant, and it also made me able to stick up for myself. Now, that manifests as having a big mouth and being cocky and other stuff like that. But I also adopted the mindset. I don't know where the hell it came from, but whenever I was faced with something hard, I would say, well, 2 days from now is going to be here 2 days from now, whether I do this or not. I just need to do it. And even like thinking about high school or college or other stuff like that, I'd be like, hey man, 4 years is going to be here 4 years from now, whether I do it or not, so I might as well do it.
I love it.
And that just, I don't know where that came from, but that mindset was set in me. And the other thing is, I remember there was a kid sophomore year, junior year, maybe, I don't even remember. But this kid was a real dick. I mean, he was a total bully. And I remember one time he grabbed my arm in class and was like squeezing it, trying to make me say uncle.
Mm.
And I just looked at him and I said, dude, you're gonna have to break it off before I'll even squeak. And the look on his face was like, holy shit. He never messed with me again.
Hey, you have to punch him. That's pretty good.
And well, I couldn't have.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just interesting how that formative stuff made me not weak, not externally focused like, hey, fix this or fix me or
Yeah.
somebody make it better.
Right.
It was like, no, it is what it is, and I can take it. And so that was my whole formative thing. Now, junior year or summer before junior year, um, one of the operations they did, finally, they were just like, you know what? Let's just rip his entire sinus lining out. Literally scrape the inside of my skull down to the bone and see if that fixes it. And it
Damn.
it mostly did. And it was like one of those, it was like a little tree that had one of those sucker vines on it that finally got cut. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden it was like, poo,
Wow.
and I started growing a little bit, and I was actually able to go to school, and so I started getting straight A's,
Nice.
because I could actually go to school, and so that gave me some confidence. And then by senior year, I'd made some friends, and I had my my posse of boys that I was hanging with, and we were doing stuff, but um that that was very very much formed the mindset that I carry to this day. Now, unbeknownst to me, they legitimately would call it PTS now
Hmm.
from all of that, as far as some unresolved stuff
Yeah.
that I had to deal with about 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, which was a good thing.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
So that's young Jim's formative stuff.
I can't tell you how many people I've talked to when I was, writing this, and a lot of them had early childhood issues, whether it was illness or other types of trauma or accidents that put them in the hospital for long periods of time. Um, and that everybody went back to that. And it's I know not everybody has those stories. And I don't know if you remember, but when I sent you the first draft of this, there was a chapter in there on a hard childhood, like sick and illness and dealing with injury and things like that. And
Yeah.
um, I had originally tried to do something like that in this book, but I wound up taking it out after some my editor made a suggestion um, to make it more of a uh, internally focused. I like when do you know you're ready
Right.
to go do these things type of chapter versus dealing with childhood cancer that might not apply to everybody. So anyway, I always thought that was a very my initial mindset of writing this book had a chapter in there for that because I think it is a profound event for people that gives you some special tools that a lot of people don't have, I think.
I think I would sort of agree with you, but I think that's also an easy answer, an
Mm,
easy thought, because there's nobody's had a perfect life. And what it is it's how do you tell the story to yourself about what happened? Whatever's happened to you, is it a story that you draw from that makes you stronger, or is it a story that makes you weaker? There's really not any there's no in between.
right.
Maybe most people are in between, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you can look at anything and interpret it as either something that made me stronger, something that gave me insight, something that gave me a leg up. So I'll give you two quick examples. I mean, you can pull these stories from anywhere. Most people though want to dwell on negative instead of on positive, and you really need to do both. So when I was a junior, I was really into drama, and I wanted to get this one part because we were going to try and go to a national contest, national competition. And so I was giving up my weekends and practicing and audition, to audition for a part that I wasn't necessarily going to get. But I remember when I got there for the audition, there was one other dude in the class going up for it. And I crushed this kid's soul. I was so ready. And long story short, I ended up going on. We competed in that competition. Our class didn't win, but I won best supporting actor for the entire competition. And it was a huge deal. I mean, that ended up helping me get into college and some other stuff. But there have been plenty of times over the years that I have gone back to that moment when I was in the mindset of preparing and getting ready without knowing if the payoff was going to be there, but fully committing to it and just getting back in that state. I've drawn on that.
Mm,
There's another thing. When I got to William and Mary, I joined ROTC much to the chagrin of my hippie parents. And I was all in, dude. I was all in. They said, hey, if you now here's what the upperclassman said to me. He said, now, if you come to Airborne PT and if you really, it was three reallys. If you really want a slot to Airborne school, you will get one. And I was like, and this is back in the Cold War when everybody's ass was a paratrooper because they figured they'd be throwing everybody out of the back of a plane. So, but anyway, only three freshmen had ever gone from William and Mary to Airborne School. And I was like, I'm going to be the fourth. So, man, I got up 3 days, 3 mornings a week. I was getting up at 5:30, getting over the gym at 6, working out, dude, just sweat. I mean, dude, I was
nice.
tiny. I mean, I had no business doing that. But over the course of the year, I got really, really strong and I got a slot to Airborne School. Well, I called my mom all excited because I had gotten a slot to Airborne School. And my mom said, you ain't going. Long story short, my parents threatened to kick me out of the house.
Damn.
And they said, you're not going. And so went through a whole bunch of stuff. They came down. My dad got me kicked out of ROTC. Whole bunch of stuff I had to go through to get back into ROTC. But then by then I had been labeled a problem child and some other stuff. But a general heard my story and he said, "Hey, you really want to go? You can go." So they got me another slot to airborne school because they had given mine away. They did a bunch of medical exams on me and stuff.
Mm.
And they're like, this is a case of parental overreach. So they got me another slot and plane tickets and everything. I was going. I went home, told my parents, "Hey, I'm going. I'm 18." They said, "All your shit will be out on the lawn." And I had to make a decision, and I had to call and the ROTC department say, "Okay, my parents won't. I can't go." And my dad looked at me because this is how you view yourself may not be how other people view you. And see, mom and dad still saw me as sick little Jimmy,
Yeah.
not Jim, who had literally transformed himself in a year. And my dad said, What made you think you could even do that?" I said, "Dude, I can max the Army's physical fitness test." I said, "I can do 80 push-ups in a row." He said, "Bullshit." I said, "Watch this." I dropped right there in the middle of the living room, no warm up, nothing, busted out 85 push-ups because the last five were fueled by hate. And I jumped up and just snapped. I mean, I jumped, I recovered, snapped to attention right in front of him. I said, "Do you want to see the sit-ups too?" And he just shook his head and didn't say anything. And that, I will tell you though, that affected our relationship for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. I can
And when
imagine.
my father passed away last summer, when he was on his deathbed, he told me, he said, I'm sorry about all that happened with that,
Ah.
because he knew that was one of those things that you could never take back. So what that taught me though was that you can bust your ass for something and still not get it.
Mm.
But what matters is who you became in the process, not necessarily the end result like that. Because I look back now, and if I had gone to airborne school, then I probably wouldn't have dropped out of ROTC to go PLC with the Marine Corps. And then PLC with the Marine Corps got canceled because of the Graham-Rudman budget cuts. And then I wasn't thinking about going enlisted. So I ended up staying in Williamsburg and doing a bunch of stuff. And I come all the way to that moment now. The reason why I'm wearing this VMI t-shirt is because my grandson is, or sweatshirt, my grandson is a rat at VMI. And if I had gone to airborne school, I wouldn't be married to the lady I'm married to, and I wouldn't have the grandkids that I have, or the kids that I have. Screw them. They were a means to an end. But you think about it and you realize that who I became and that experience I had was far more valuable than whether I went and became a 5 jump commando.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm, hmm.
so
Oh
anyway,
yeah.
but those are the kinds of things though, that how you interpret that is how you interpret anything that happens in your life. Are you telling a story that empowers you and gives you an excuse to go do cooler stuff? Or are you telling a story that enables you to blame some circumstance or some person or something else as to why you don't have what you have?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It sounds like to me your experience with that, you realized I got stronger, I got tougher, I got smarter in this process. And you're taking those three things with you for the rest of your life.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And you still, but you have to be able to recognize that as well.
Oh
So
yeah.
I remember one of the guys that I knew in high school, a dude named Sam Root, super cool dude. He went to William and Mary, was a wrestler. He was huge. He was huge in high school. And I
Hmm.
was this little tiny thing. So anyway, I kept working out, I was lifting and doing stuff. And I was pretty swole by the time I was a junior in college. I mean, you would not have recognized me. And one day there's a knock on my door in the fraternity house, and I go, and there's Sam Roots standing there with another kid that I knew from high school, a kid named Joe Namath. No shit. The kid's name was Joe Namath, and they played football.
That's cool.
And Sam looked at Joe, didn't even say hi to me. He said, Sam looked at Joe and he said, I told you. And Joe's like, holy shit, dude. And I'm like, what? He told Sam I was taller than Joe. I actually grew like 5 inches in college.
Nice.
And um I was taller than Joe. And Joe's like, holy shit, dude. I'm like, what are you all talking about? And Sam's like, I told him you got big, dude. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. Good seeing you. He's like, all right, see you. That was it. I was just like, that was funny.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Um, but anyway, yeah, but here's the other thing is most people, if you think about your experiences, whether it's yesterday or 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40, 50 years ago, you can either look at them as guideposts on a journey of
Yeah.
your choosing that you might have to take some wobbles and wiggles and other stuff like that, or you can load that shit up into a backpack and let it weigh your ass down the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I would much prefer just to and the good ones, the great ones are actually light because you're not carrying the emotional baggage of them. You're just carrying the experience of them. They make you stronger.
Yeah, I love it.
But a lot of people are loading up their ruck with rocks of bullshit that they don't even, they always default back to them too. And that's just why life's going to be over before you know it.
Yeah.
But tell a story that empowers you, man.
Yeah, I love that. So you have another story, and I love this one because it is something that you share with fellow entrepreneurs, when they're just getting started, where they had this idea, maybe they're still working full time and they got this side gig going and they're trying to make that side gig work, and it's a struggle. I mean, it is a full out struggle. It might take years to actually get up on your own and moving. I think we've all had that struggle in that entrepreneurial journey, but you look back at it and you're like, that's what made me, right?
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so I'd love you for you to share like your story post college, like what you did and what you're doing now.
So when I graduated from college, I had a degree in history, and if I hadn't been drunk the whole month of March my senior year, I could have had a minor either in Chinese comparative literature or South American archaeology. But I couldn't be bothered to fill out the paperwork, just like I couldn't be bothered to drop two PE classes and got an F in each one, but didn't care because it didn't count to your overall GPA, so I didn't give a shit. And so when I graduated with that degree in history, I was qualified to do two things. One, I could go be a teacher, which at this point you would really want to question whether you want me teaching your children, okay, anything. Or I could go into 100% commission sales because nobody was letting officers into the military unless you came through, one of the academies or other stuff in the late 80s. It wasn't happening.
Mm.
So I said, all right, I guess I'll go into sales. And in 18 months, I quit or got fired from 7 different jobs. And so one day I was an assistant center manager at Nutrisystem when they used to be in strip malls. And I sold the I was really good at that because I learned that if you could make them cry, they'd buy. And so, but I sold the lady and she said, you'd be really good in my business. I said, wow, okay. Well, I've been over about every other business. What do you do? She was in the mortgage business. She explained to me how it worked. And I said, you know what? I think I could do that. I think I could do that really well. And so I made a bank in Virginia Beach give me a job because I just harassed the president of the mortgage bank to the point where I was calling him at home at night, telling
Oh.
him he needed to hire me. So he hired me with the full intent that I would fail. And within a year, I was making $100,000 at 23. Now, in 1991, 1992,
That's
making a
solid.
hundred grand was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so I thought my poop didn't stink. I mean, I had my Acura was paid for. I had a house. I owned my own home. I was wearing $400 suits. I mean, I had it going on to the point where I thought that I was like, okay, I've made it. I figured it out. Everything I do is going to work. Well, through a series of really bad business decisions and a move to Florida and a move back from Florida, losing my house, I ended up living in a trailer. And I was pretty much, I mean, I had developed a heart condition. I mean, just it was bad. It was meteoric rise, meteoric fall. Had written a book on how to sell your house yourself. Actually have a copy of it. I sent it off to 40 different publishers, got rejected by all 40. And so I was at homecoming and I ran into a fraternity brother and I said, he mentioned his dad. So this is the book, okay? Comb bound. I don't even think they do this anymore. It might be illegal because of the plastics in that thing, but um he and his dad had bought a web server and I said, "Hey, do you think I could sell my book on the internet?" Now he was totally unqualified to say yes, but he was like, "Yeah, sure. You can buy web hosting from us." So what that did though was it launched me on a 4-year odyssey of trying to figure out how to sell my book on the internet. And it didn't go great, but through pure blunt force trauma of effort, I got it up to where it was making a few $100 a month. And um, couple
This
cool
was in
things
the
came.
90s too, right?
Yeah, this was in 1997.
That's incredible. Because
So
nobody was selling ebooks in 1997.
no, I was one of the first ever. I got written up
Yeah.
in the New York Times and some other stuff. But I mean, the funny thing, was when I was in bankruptcy court, I listed the book as an asset, and the judge laughed at me and was like, "Man, that must not be a very good book if you don't even own a house." And I was like, "Whoa, I'm gonna have to suck on that." Fat, sweaty little piece of shit. But anyway, and not that I'm holding on to that one. But the bottom line is I leveraged it into some stuff. I started writing for the newspaper and some other things. And so long story short, I ended up working for a guy who treated me like shit, but I learned a lot. And he couldn't speak. And he got invited to speak at a conference in Boulder, Colorado. I went to Boulder. He's like, "Hey, I need you to give the presentation for the company." And that was where everything had led to that moment.
Nice.
And I was ready for my moment. And when I spoke, I met guys who changed my life forever. Dudes I know to this day.
Nice.
And within 18 months, based on what I had learned, connections I made, number one, I learned how to write a sales letter. And that night in Boulder, Colorado, because I had no money to go to the bar, I went into my room and I took my 40-page website, turned it into a 1-page long form sales letter. Sales went up 250% overnight. I got that website in one night to the point where it got me out of the trailer park. It was making enough money to cover a house payment, 2 car payments, and an electric bill.
Let me interrupt you real quick and share with the younger folks that don't understand how incredible that is. Because let me tell you, in 1997, the, the internet was just coming on, and nobody wanted to do this,
Oh,
put
hell
this,
no.
put this on the internet.
No.
Nobody wanted. I mean, people would send you a check in the mail order, and you would mail it yourself. I mean, that's how hard it was to do business on the internet, and to do it that well is something.
I felt like I was laundering money because people would send money orders and stuff, and you had to email them the thing and all this other stuff. And I was literally processing book orders through my aunt's craft mall at the Williamsburg Outlet Mall. And hey man, I was top producer in the outlet mall like 10 out of 12 months every year. So they could only beat me at Christmas. Otherwise, I was top producer, man. And then you had to explain to people why they were buying a book called Selling Your Home Alone, but their credit card was going to reflect Country Treasures.
Hmm.
Hey, it's sales. So, the thing is though, once I really figured it out and I got humbled, I really believe that was God humbling my ass because
Sure.
I had gotten really cocky because I was doing it. But I got behind on my taxes with the IRS. I mean, you name it, man. I was bankrupt, behind on my taxes, but I got it caught up. I was on a payment plan with the with the IRS, and it was the universe getting me ready because I have never not paid the IRS since. And what I declared bankruptcy over, Grant, I had developed a heart condition. We thought I was, really screwed. What I declared bankruptcy over is not even a good Amex bill now for a month. Just pay it
Nice.
off. But
Nice.
it was the universe getting me ready because I always pay the IRS. I never carry a balance on credit cards. Everything I own is paid for, and I don't finance shit. And took a lot of years of not people say doing without. I mean, one of our favorite things to do, we used to do, Terry and I would go combing through thrift stores. I mean, that was like our Saturday, hey, we need one of these, one of these. Okay, we're going to go out and see the cheapest we can get it, man. What can we do? And we're like high-fiving over a $5 microwave and shit. Hey, it is what it is, man.
Hey man, you got to do
Um,
what you got to do.
but it got us ready. And I think one of the biggest things, again, if you just kind of where did that journey take me? It took me to where I am now, which is, and I've weirdly enough have not even touched my board. But I think the biggest thing that people do when it comes to life, when you're living life, and if you think about income and things like that, if it's, you have some ups and then you have some setbacks and then you have some ups and you have some setbacks. But what most people are doing is they're living here with their money. And
Ah,
so they're always spending next year's money last year, and it compounds and gets worse and worse and worse. But what I have learned is that even with the ups and downs and the everything, if you're living here, it's easy to tell somebody to go F themselves if you don't like what they're doing. You don't have to be in business with somebody. You don't have to do a deal. You don't have to do stuff if you're living here and just kind of keeping an eye on stuff. And but this is where most people live, and that's how they get screwed. And
yeah.
they get you right out of school. This is the thing. It's like the world that they're standing there as soon as you graduate. Hey, show us your diploma and we'll give you a car. Show us your diploma and we'll give you a credit card. It's designed to put you into not just financial servitude, but all other type of servitude.
Mm.
Society set up for your ass to get a job, shut up, sit down, do what I tell you. And anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent
No,
there,
I
but
like
that's
this because
it's
this is like your never quit mindset leads to freedom.
yeah.
Yeah, but this is freedom.
But you don't need stuff to make you happy.
Mm.
And that's something I learned when I was a kid because we didn't really have much. I grew up middle class poor. A lot of that was because my parents spent most of their savings on my medical care when I was a kid.
Mm.
And so I'm very grateful to them for that. Um, but I know how to get by. I knew how, I always had a little odd job, little hustling. I was
Yeah.
selling magazines door to door. And it is what it is. So I'll give the talking stick back to you to kind of get me back on track. I don't know if that told the story that you wanted me to tell
Yeah,
about
I
the
mean,
trailer.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the life of the entrepreneur requires the never quit mindset
Mhm.
because I can't tell you how many people have started off wanting to do something. They had a great idea and then something happens and they go back looking for a job and now it's back burner stuff that doesn't get done for another 10 years. You know,
Oh
that
yeah,
that
if at
that is
all.
that is life that that can really hit you like that. But tell them like what was your day like when you were working full time for someone else and you had the idea of going into business for yourself.
Oh, my ass was
How
up at
how,
I was up
how
at
did that look?
3:34 in the morning. I was up at 3:34 in the morning.
Yeah.
And literally, I would work from 4 in the morning until 8 in the morning, and then I'd get ready, get my shower, and then I'd head off to the job, be there by 9, work till 5, be home by 6, and then I would work from 6:30 to 9. And then it's on Saturday, I'd put in a
Oh,
half a day. I'd put in a half a day on Saturday,
yeah.
6 to 6. Yeah,
Damn.
I
Yeah.
mean, 12 hours on Saturday, because it's like, dude, it's what's the alternative? The alternative is this, but the only way it's going to change is if I act. If I act, then something will change. If I don't act, then nothing will change. And the other thing that people look at, okay, well, I tried this and it didn't work, I must be a failure. No, dumbass. You tried something that didn't work. What do? You try something else. That didn't work. Try something else. That worked a little bit. Hey, let's 10x that. It's one of those things that you got a choice. There's always a choice. I love it to hear I don't have a choice. Bullshit. There's always a choice. You're just choosing to keep doing the shit you're doing now. Oh, well, you got it. Bullshit. Everybody, oh, well, you didn't have kids. No, I didn't have kids. I instantly got 2 kids when I got married. I didn't get the diapers and stuff. I got insolent fucking teenagers and had to work my way through that. Okay. I love them now.
Yeah.
But my point is that you can make excuses or you can take action.
Yeah. I love it.
And yes, every once in a while you kind of, oh shit. It's fine. Sit down, lick your wounds for a day. Okay. And
Yep.
while you're sitting there licking your wounds, do some evil scheming on how you're going to get out of this. And, I've picked up some things along the way. You want to talk specifically about entrepreneurial stuff. A lot of people jerk around way too much getting ready to get ready and do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a point of decision where most people don't even get to a point of making a decision. They're at a point of just mental masturbation. And so the other thing is, if someone actually will make a decision, the space between the making of the decision and taking an action is really long.
Yeah.
And success is on the other side of action. So what you want to do is decide and act basically at the same time. Now, deciding is different than planning and blah, 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 blah. And you can argue with all this stuff as much as you want. But one of the things I've learned if I decide to do something, I take action on it right then. If
Yeah.
there's
Same.
one thing that I need to work on, though, is that sometimes my follow-up skill isn't as what it needs to be. But a lot of times it's like, hey, you know what? I made a decision. I acted on that thing. That action I took didn't work. Screw this. I still want to make that happen, but I'm gonna have to do something. This I don't see this working.
Yeah. Well, that's your learning experience. It's not a failure.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people stop. Is they get that first idea, they start acting on it, they fail, and now it's just they're dealing with doubt and failure and right. And they didn't learn anything from it. I
Right.
love to in this book I quote um, Thomas Edison. One of my favorites is he figured out 500 ways not to make a light bulb. And
There you go.
I just love the fact that he didn't fail 500 times. He didn't fail at all, right?
Here,
And he completely took that word out of his vocabulary.
right. The other thing is that consistency of action is important. You're not going for the hero effort. You're going for the consistently act. Now, and this is where you asked, hey, what did your day look like when you were doing this? Yeah, my ass was getting up at 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock, and busting ass for 4 hours. But in my mind, it wasn't like, oh, I have to do this. Like, man,
I was excited.
I can invest 4 hours in myself
Yeah.
before I'm going to give the best of myself to myself, not to somebody who doesn't appreciate me. And that's also where I learned that I could get more done in a couple hours a day than most people
100%.
get done all day.
Absolutely.
And so if you just do the math, even if you can, I call it the two golden hours. Okay, you got a creative hour and a mechanical hour. Even if you're super busy, I got kids, I got bills, I got a wife, I got a house, I got whatever.
How much
Okay,
Netflix you watching?
exactly. Okay, you
Yeah.
got an hour in the morning, an hour at night. Figure out which one's creative, which one's mechanical. 2 hours a day times 5 days a week. That's 10 hours plus at least 8 hours on Saturday. That's 18. Let's call it an even 20 hours a week. That's 80 hours a month. That's 960 hours a year. That is
Woo.
20 something weeks, 20 something 40-hour weeks devoted to your stuff with full focus, not with the I'm at work bullshit with, oh, I just got here, let me get ready to get ready. Well, let me get some shit done before, let me get a cup of coffee. Oh, hey, how's it going? What'd you think of the game last night? I can't believe that the Giants lost. I can. They suck. Um, and then it's like, oh, let me get something done. And I get back from lunch. It's like, man, I'm tired. Only working a couple hours a day for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know. But that's the other thing that I really figured out is that the consistency of effort. It's kind of like working out. You're not going to lose all the weight all at once. One cheeseburger won't make you fat, but a cheeseburger every day for a couple of months will fatten you up, tubby. Okay? And running once is only going to make your knees hurt. But if you run every day or every other day with a smart plan executed consistently, you get to a point where you can maintain a very high level of fitness with what feels like a relatively minimal amount of effort.
Yeah.
I'm kind of
True.
there right now,
Yep.
75 to 90 minutes is good for me now. Whereas it used to be 2 hours. Sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
Um, so that consistency of action, but you got to give it time to compound. And most people give up before their efforts have time to compound.
Yep.
So, that's just bring me back around, Stu. I run on. It's like, let me
No,
run
man.
out there and Stu brings me back.
Yeah, the never quit mindset is there's no real template to this, Jim. It really isn't. Everybody has a different never quit mindset story, a process, but I just like to hear other people's story of failing, not failing, calling it a learning experience, dealing with doubt, because we all deal with doubt. I think people doubt themselves, don't realize that we all do. We all
Sure.
have to deal with doubt. And the best way to deal with doubt is act.
Is action. Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's another reason why decide and act. Don't, because the longer you wait, the faster doubt has time to kind of peek his head in and say, hey, y'all got some of them stupid ideas today? I got one for you. You suck. Remember the last time you tried this, Chuckles? Yeah, why don't we just go have a cheeseburger? In
We
fact,
all we
yeah,
all deal with that.
don't
We all
read
deal
Think
with
and
that.
Grow Rich. Why don't you look at porn? I mean, just whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, hey Jim, I appreciate your time with this. I think your story is incredible. What you do now is incredible. You're now taking what you have learned and being operating a business and you're teaching others to do the same thing. And if you really want some entrepreneurial assistance, go check out copyandcontent.ai. He has evolved with technology. Every single year that technology has evolved, he's been 1 year ahead of it. And he has some programs now that can make your life so much easier, save you some time, and make that golden 2 hours really productive. So yeah, copyandcontent.ai. You can check out Jim Edwards over there. And just know that he's been exactly where you are.
Absolutely.
He has been at that point where he's working full time at a job he doesn't like and trying to get that side gig going, and he got it going. and decide and act. Keep on moving, never quit. That's the whole name of the game.
100%. Well, thanks for having me, Stu. I appreciate you, man.
You bet. Everybody, thank you, and we'll be back next week. You guys have a good one.